You guys want to know, and it's time for me to tell you. I joined the Enhanced Games because I'm sick of half transparency and pretending that things like this don't exist. When I walk through the Olympia, I walk through the Arnold, we see every teenager in the building doing some sort of illicit substance. Who are we hiding it from? At this point, I feel like we're just hiding it from their moms. But let's dive into it. Let's talk about what the goal of Enhanced actually is.
What a time to be alive. I never thought we'd be at the point where A, people give a shit about strength sports enough for the biggest guys to actually have a huge audience like this, but B, that they would be explaining to that audience in no uncertain terms that they are taking gear and exactly what gear they are taking. In the 60 or 70 odd years that steroids have just kind of been around, there's always been this like buffer zone. Once you're initiated, once you know people that compete, once you're a coach or you're part of the ranks, you know what people are doing. It's not a secret. People talk openly about it. But if you're not quite there, if you're new, if you're a consumer, if you're watching it from the outside, there's always this doubt because people were just always by default denying it. So here we got Mitch Hooper, who's been like the most dominant force in strongman for the last few years. He doesn't seem to show any signs of slowing down, and he decided to hop on the Enhanced Games, which Hafthor Bjornsson is also part of. I'm assuming this is related to the deadlift record. And we're a couple months away. The Enhanced Games go down in May, and Mitch here is filling us in on what exactly he's doing to get ready. So let's get into it.
With anything, when it comes to sport and performance, there's always a continuum between your health and how well you perform. For example, triathletes have severe cardiac issues from how much exercise they do for performance. As a strongman, I have negative health implications from being 330 pounds.
This is a really important point, and people in the comments fuck this up all the time. It's mind-boggling to me how often I see people give their opinions about steroids and talk about how that's not conducive to health and longevity. I don't know where it became like synonymous, where people just assume that if you are trying to lift weights at the highest level or run or swim at the highest level, that health and longevity has fuck all to do with what you're doing. There are a million reasons to lift weights. You lift weights to be better at another sport. You can absolutely use it for health and longevity. As you get older, you want your bones dense, you want to be stronger. Even with all the bumps, bruises, and injuries, lifting weights is still better than not lifting weights. But a 900-pound deadlift isn't going to help you live longer. In fact, the things you have to do to get a 900-pound deadlift are almost certainly going to kill you. Somebody could be on 200 milligrams of testosterone, which isn't really dangerous in any meaningful capacity, and they'll get raked over the coals. But someone will look at Jesus Oliveira, who's morbidly obese. Like, at this body weight, at this build, this guy's going to make it into his 70s. But because he's natty, it's like, it's fine. Do you, bro.
I've always wondered how to talk about this because I think it's going to surprise you how little it actually takes when you respond well and when you're going to be one of the strongest in the world anyway to be able to take that next step.
And I've heard this from like world-class coaches, people that are at the top of their game. The people that take the most amount of shit, it's always the people that are mediocre that are trying to blast their way up to the next level.
So let's talk about what we're actually allowed to use, because it's not a free-for-all to just use whatever we feel like. We have to stick to things that have been approved by major health organizations to be put in a human body. This means some sort of approval for some sort of purpose. Hormones, they're allowed. Research compounds are not allowed. Peptides, some are allowed, some are not allowed. Medications, some are allowed, some are not allowed.
I don't know about you guys, but that's ruining it for me a little bit. I was really hoping that these athletes were going to be walking around, their stomach just filled with like a 7-Eleven suicide slurry of different compounds. I wanted them to smell like a chemical factory. I wanted their skin different shades of yellow and purple. I wanted to see some freak mutant Hulk shit, but I guess they got to worry about liability. So
to win World's Strongest Man, simple as this: 500 milligrams of testosterone a week, 300 milligrams of NPP a week, 100 milligrams of Masteron a week.
So what do we got? 500 mgs of test per week. Imagine you're starting out with testosterone replacement therapy. You're just replacing the testosterone you produce to get normal levels, probably on the order of 100 milligrams a week, maybe a little more. That's a low dose. If you already have normal to high testosterone levels, you might notice a little boost. You might notice you feel a little bit better, a little more assertive, libido's a little bit higher. It's probably not going to blow your mind. Just by virtue of your blood levels being a little more stable throughout the week rather than the spikes you get naturally, that might be a little bit of an advantage, but I mean, not really. Now, if your testosterone levels are low, like I knew guys that were under 100, normal range is between like 250 and 1,000, and then you go on TRT, it's like your first time taking mushrooms. It blows your mind. You're like, oh my God, there's this whole world that I had no idea was here. And you're like, oh, was I really dealing with mental health issues? Was I really depressed? Or were my hormones just fucking whacked? And you're like, Yeah, I think it was just my hormones were fucking whacked. Then you got NPP. So NPP is essentially like DECA. DECA is something you take that bloats the fuck out of you. Guys get their neck and their traps get swollen, their face gets all puffy. So people like DECA because it puts water on the joints. You feel wet, as they say. You are filled with water. You do feel more compression around your joints. So with all the overuse issues you get, or with other compounds that do the opposite, that dry you out, that make you feel like absolute shit. You're 90 years old. You're like the Tin Man. Like every time you go to lay down on the bench, shit's creaking and crackling. People like DECA for that reason. Now, NPP is in and out quick. It doesn't have what you call a long ester, which means it has a long half-life. DECA is in your system for fucking ever. And DECA causes what is known as DECA dick, meaning you tend to lose sensation. It becomes harder to get hard or stay hard. And especially if you're on a cocktail of shit, you end up, it's like some Twilight Zone nightmare, because you'll have your libido through the roof. You will have the urge, the impulse to bone, and you'll have like no ability. It'll be like your dick is disembodied from the rest of you. So you can think of DECA as just, it's going to make you a kind of wet, bulky, well lubricated, tanky lifting machine that at the same time is going to be very sexually non-threatening. So masterone's one of these secondary compounds that people use. It's not the main driver of anything. They throw it in as it's like a refinement drug. It helps you stay dry. It has some anti-estrogenic properties that some guys like, so it'll keep things like gyno down, or it might regulate their mood a little bit better. There's kind of a ranking system for drugs that'll tell you like how potent they are per milligram. So you'll get things that are incredibly potent, where a little dose is going to cause a big impact in your body. You take something like trenbolone. It's a huge impact regardless of the dose. You don't have to use a lot to feel it. But then you'll have something like Primo on the other end that is known for being weaker, not having as much of an aggressive effect. He's only taking 100 grams of masterone. Masterone is not one of these things that has a potent effect, so like you only need 100 milligrams of it. It's kind of medium-ish for like size or strength. The reason he's probably putting it in is because it's known to have some anti-estrogenic effects, so it can help regulate mood. It can help prevent estrogen stuff like, potential for gyno or whatever. So it's this kind of little side compound that kind of refines things. And it's with this type of shit that guys end up, for better or worse, being mad scientists, because people will get really finicky about what's going on in their body. Sometimes you get obvious shit that you want to get under control, but a lot of times people will just spend so much time dwelling. They're like, well, what if I run this cycle I saw on Reddit? What if I do this other thing I heard this other lifter do that's gonna do X, Y, or Z? And it turns into a clusterfuck. There's like so much noise of compounds going in, being pulled out, being rotated, and you don't have any actual objective measurement. So a lot of guys are just jerking themselves off that they actually have this precision with their biology that they don't. And the truth is that anybody in the gym that was desperate to get a little bit of an edge probably doesn't need more than a couple 100 milligrams of testosterone to get noticeable returns for an extended period of time, so long as their training's good. But if your training sucks and you can't make a couple 100 milligrams of testosterone work for you, you're sure as shit not really going to grow with all of this harder stuff. You'll notice a short-term bump, you'll get a little thicker, you'll get a little stronger, and the second the shit's out, you're going to go right back to zero. The only way you get long-term sustainable growth, regardless of what you're doing, is by having your eating and your training on fucking point. And I believe fully that most people can get really goddamn strong and muscular without any drugs. So of course I'm going to be an advocate that if you do go on drugs, you don't have to take the fucking kitchen sink in order to do anything worthwhile. But I digress. Let's go on.
Milligrams of masterone a week, that's it. Take a look at me when I won World's Strongest Man. I didn't look like someone who was on a whole bunch of stuff, and it's...
Cue the comment. Imagine going on steroids for that physique. I get it all the time. I'm not gonna lie, they stung for a while. They hurt. The fat fifth grader in me was like, this is what we've done for the last 30 years. This is what we have to show for it. You look like a rashy Mr. Potato Head. It sucks for me. She's a talented fucking athlete so much. I mean, consider Mariusz Pudzianowski. He didn't put like any real special attention into his physique. He trained his balls off. He trained a lot, but he was known for eating everything under the sun, a quart of ice cream every night before bed. He trained a lot of main barbell shit, a lot of event shit, just like crazy. He'd have these long training sessions, but it's not like Pudzianowski was trying to be a bodybuilder. Just like Derek Poundstone wasn't trying to be a bodybuilder. You get some guys, just based off the types of lifts they like to do and how they're put together, they just kind of end up looking that way. So you look at Mitch, who's hyper talented. He's obviously a fast responder, and he's taking gear. And it's like, look, man, this is genetics right here. Like, what are we looking at here? He's not excessively fat, but like he's just fat enough to like look like a dad bod. His arms aren't exceptionally big, which they don't need to be for what he's doing to have his arms as strong as they need to be to lift stones and bags and so on. The thick waist turns out very helpful for deadlifting over a grand, which Mitch can do. Long arms turns out very beneficial for picking up odd objects. Anyways, it just goes to show, focus on your goals, focus on the thing that you want to do, and don't get all caught up in all this other shit. I just started a new school community. It's going to be kind of like broad group coaching, but I want to get a community of people to like talk and support each other, because training feels like it's getting more and more isolated, and it helps to have that reinforcement. And I want to give you guys as much value as I can. But like today, I did a live call. I'm going to be doing those weekly, and we got on the topic of not getting spread thin, because so many people in their introduction were saying things like, yeah, I have a problem. I want to do it all. I want to be big and jacked and strong and flexible and do calisthenics and be a powerlifting champion, whatever it is. And it's good to have different modalities of training present, but it's not good to have these little periods of fixation where you start doing something, you start getting good, and you're like, oh, no, but I want this thing over here. And if you're somebody like Mitch freaking Hooper, you're not going to give a shit because you want to dominate strongman. Why would you stop to go try to retool your physique if it's not going to add anything? How he looks is a byproduct of his genetic predisposition and the type of training that he does. He might be able to overhaul his training and not look like that, but there's no amount of drugs that are going to fix it. And the type of training he would have to do would probably be detrimental to his goals anyways. So anyways, I know Mitch gets these comments and just makes me feel better. I know I also do not look like the IFBB Pro physique that steroids obviously make you look like. Let's get back to it.
Now, coming into enhanced games, I'm gonna do a few extra things just to see, can I get the most out of my body by committing to a few new things? So, I'm gonna up my dose of testosterone from 500 milligrams a week to 750 milligrams a week. I'm gonna stick at 300 milligrams of NPP. I'm not gonna take Masteron because that's not on the approved list. I'm taking 60 milligrams of Adderall only on heavy competition days. I have a prescription for this. I'm gonna add in Halo. Halo can be really good for strength, 50 milligrams a day. I'm gonna add in Anadrol, 100 milligrams a day.
So here's the important thing with doses. What is a lot and what is a little is dependent on the individual because of A, how you respond to it, and B, what you are acclimated to. So if you are somebody who is not used to taking 300 milligrams a test, 300 milligrams a test is going to be a lot in the beginning. And if you cycle on and off, you keep yourself sensitive to the dose, you don't have to keep jacking it up over and over and over. Every time you make a big leap, you are going to get another surge of effect. So if it is the case, he's only been running 500 milligrams a test, jump into 750 to 50% increase, that's going to be substantial. He's not taking the Masteron, 100 mgs, he's replacing with 50 milligrams of Halo and 100 of Anadrol. So you're like, oh, only 50 milligrams of more stuff. No. First of all, remember that I said these compounds get ranked on how effective they are per milligram. Masteron is meh. Anadrol is, Anadrol is extremely powerful. You feel the effects very quickly. It dramatically increases your red blood cell count, which is great for like feeling like you have a lot of muscular endurance, like out of fucking nowhere. It's not great for the viscosity of your blood required not to have a heart attack. I mean, guys aren't just routinely dropping dead just because they started Anadrol, but it will make your blood pressure go up and you tend to feel the effects. That's when like you deadlift a week into taking it and you start to see spots and you're like, oh my God. And if you are predisposed to blood pressure problems, that is where you really have to be careful. So Anadrol is an oral and that makes it very liver toxic. It is very hard on your system to take it and you have to take it multiple times throughout the day because it has a short half-life. But Anadrol is more type of like the wet, sticky bloat gains you get, known for adding a lot of mass really quick. A lot of it's tissue. A lot of it is also like fluid and bloating and stuff like that. A lot of glycogen retention. You'll see guys' cheeks get fatter. Their hands will get fatter because every muscle in your body is now swollen with glycogen. And you get strength gains, but it's mass-driven strength gains. It's not a neurological switch the way that a lot of these other compounds are. Like Trenbolone it does both, but it has a huge neurological effect. Anadrol does not. So obviously, if you're a weight class competitor, you're not going to do it. You see a lot of heavyweights do it, and you see strongmen do it. So he's already got the MPP, he's already got the Anadrol, and this is probably going to have him add another 10 or 20 pounds in both tissue and fluid and retention between now and the games. And he's throwing in 50 milligrams of halotestin. Again, if we're talking about kicking the balls per milligram, halotestin is up there. Halo is notorious for causing rage. It is a very neurological compound. Guys take it because, again, it's an oral, but it quickly makes you aggressive. There are some steroids that were known for being used primarily as pre-workouts. Guys would take things called check drops, which had such a fast half-life, they weren't viable almost as an anabolic compound. They were in and out in a couple hours. Well, you're not going to pop check drops all day. You just take them before a meet because it physically makes you angry. It physically like liberates motor unit recruitment. It's kind of crazy. So halotestin is very much in that camp. I mean, I've heard horror stories. Halo is something that you should absolutely stay away from unless you are a very well-regulated person who does not have anything that you might call an anger problem. So even though the milligrams here didn't go up wildly, it is a pretty substantial increase, 50% more testosterone, and then replacing masteron with 2 compounds that are pretty aggressive. And then we got the Adderall. As a guy who has a prescription for ADHD meds, I can attest to what things like this actually do to increase performance. Personally, I'm interested in why he's using it. Is he using this because he has ADHD and he's just disclosing it to us, or does he want to get a training effect out of it? Any stimulant is going to sufficiently increase your performance within a workout. But again, what I worry about with stimulants, and it doesn't matter if it's Adderall or if it's other types of really powerful stimulants, especially if you're taking a lot of them, is blood pressure effects. He's talked in this video multiple times about how he's obese, he's big, and that increases all-cause mortality, that increases his chance of death for any reason. Well, now he's doing things where he's trying to bulk up more and more, taking Adderall on top of it. Now, the thing is, I don't think Mitch is some special case. It's not like, hey, everybody keep an eye out for Mitch, he might drop dead soon, because this isn't like really crazy by a lot of the standards that you might conceive of. And this is where the discussion of safety gets kind of wonky, because while it is true that steroids have a risk to them, they have unwanted side effects. And if you're reckless, if you're not paying attention, if you're doing too much, those can compound over time. And then the more you take, the longer you take them, the worse your lifestyle choices are. That's how you end up as one of the many dead pro bodybuilders. However, it is also the case that there is essentially no compound in your kitchen, in your medicine cabinet, that you can go and run 50 times the dose day in, day out for decades and not drop dead. Compared to most of the things we consider drugs that we take every day, whether it's alcohol or freaking ibuprofen, the fact that this stuff can be taken at such high doses by a population that largely doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and that you don't have people dropping dead in gyms. You have to look at the most extreme extremes of bodybuilders who are running diuretics and involved in a bunch of other shit. Bodybuilders take the highest doses of anybody. That tells you that the shit, it's not quite as dangerous as people lead you to believe. Or at the very least, we can say that the danger is heavily, heavily related to how recklessly you use. Now, when it comes to things like risk, the average human person and the population at large is not great at assessing risk in a meaningful way. People are like a little egg just balancing at the top of a steeple. Like they're going to fall over one way or another and they're going to go all the way down. It's either, yeah, it's not a big deal, people overreact, or it's going to be like, I can't believe you're taking years off your life. And either way, it's going to end up with the most low resolution perspective. So that is a Mitch Hooper cycle. I think it's crazy the guys are coming out and talking about it, and we'll see what this does. Is this going to encourage a lot more people to go on? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I want to make a prediction. I feel very confident that whatever studies they do on those other athletes, the research that they're conducting, I would be insanely surprised if I found those athletes to be more at risk or have more problems than the general population. I just don't believe that for a fact. I believe if you are an enhanced games athlete and you're running a carefully monitored protocol and doing things right and checking your markers, whatever, the fact that you are fit and active and ambitious and working towards something, in addition to taking the performance enhancers, that is not going to make you worse off or less healthy than a sedentary individual who isn't doing shit. Even though the sedentary individual probably feels like they have that little bit of morality, like you take steroids, that's bad for you, as they go eat Jack in the Box and sit on the couch and watch 9 hours of fucking Bridgerton. But anyways, you don't need gear to get jacked. I trained for 15 years without gear. I got plenty strong and plenty muscular. I just wanted to compete at the world level, and I got to compete at the world level, and it was pretty cool, and I don't fucking regret anything. If you're not close to competing at the world level, don't do it. Go live for fun. Make some friends, go on a diet, get your abs showing, add a little size to your arms, enjoy fucking life. But that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.